Jacob and Jeff
I'm
and
actually Sarah.
Sarah.
I'm Jacob today.
Jacob couldn't be with us.
Who are going to talk about the big board. It looks incredibly exciting. I'm not going to be here at the end, so I'm going to say thanks very much now. Amy's going to finish at the end, but over to you. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having us. We're incredibly excited to be here with you guys, and just amazing projects and people around the ecosystem for the microbit that we've been meeting in the last 24 hours. So we're very grateful for the opportunity to share with you something we've been working on in Atlantic Canada for about a year now. So just a couple of minutes to let you know kind of our origin story. So about 5-6 years ago, the government of New Brunswick, Canada, which is in Atlantic Canada, lighthouses, you guys might have those. So Atlantic Canada consists of 4 provinces. We've got New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, Labrador, and Nova Scotia, which is down here. And basically, if you hop over here, you're in England. So you're very close neighbors to us. And so about 5-6 years ago, some entrepreneurs and some government officials from New Brunswick came to Estonia and Finland and a few other countries to study what was going on, because the education system in New Brunswick at the time, they had done some surveys, and about 60% of children in the school system were disengaged. So that wasn't good. That meant only 40% of the kids in our school system were connecting with what the education system was providing. And so we developed this idea to create a not-for-profit that's turned into more of a grassroots movement to try to empower youth to create, innovate, and develop an entrepreneurial spirit, but with a socially responsible kind of conscience. And so we got started with a bit of seed funding from economic development, all public kind of sector funding. And over time, the federal government has gotten involved in the private sector. And we started seeding makerspaces. So there was a teacher yesterday that was talking about her trials and tribulations of getting a makerspace going, but how the perseverance paid off. And I was choking back tears because it's a very exciting time to be in education in Atlantic Canada. We've got about 150 makerspaces that we're supporting. All 4 provincial governments are kind of helping support that. We have a staff now of about 30-some people. So where I started myself alone, so I can relate with Keith from Ireland, running around with his head cut off, trying to reach as many teachers and students. And then Sarah joined us, and then all of a sudden now we're about 35 of us, and 17 of those are certified teachers. A lot of them that are lent to us, like seconded, I don't know if you guys have that here in England, to work with us directly in schools. And so we got a message yesterday from one of our first teachers that worked on a project with us. So where the microbit is super important, because, and I'll talk a little bit about that, we started to try to seed makerspaces, project-based funding for teachers, innovation challenges, design challenges, professional learning for teachers, and it just kind of escalated from there. If there was a gap, we would disrupt and try to go in there and make things happen. So this young man, Connor, sent a message to his teacher, who then sent that on Facebook and sent me a message yesterday about it. So the very first project we ever did in 2014 was an underwater ROV project where the kids had to put stuff together. The teacher was a math teacher, had nothing to do with robotics, didn't want anything to do with robotics, needed a little bit of coaching. Anyway, they ended up Skyping with the inventor out of Seattle, and they got this thing finally figured out and going, studied trout in the Miramichi rivers and ponds. Anyway, the student left, graduated, came out with a certificate with the Department of Forestries, got posted to the Northwest Territories, which is super, super high up north in Canada, and was deployed for 4 days on an expedition. There had been a very tragic accident. A bunch of snowmobilers had fallen through the ice on the lake and passed away. And so here's this young man, now 21 years old, having graduated high school, was part of this ROV project 4 or 5 years ago, and he was the only one that had experience with underwater robotics, so he was able to lead the expedition and actually were able to find the bodies and at least bring the family some closure. So we've got this real-world kind of project situation, and I don't know if you can read, but there's a message from the student directly to the teacher, thanking him for integrating this project-based learning, real-world kind of stuff. So it's pretty neat. And we've got thousands of these stories. Want to jump in at some point?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
Thanks, Jeff. That's amazing. So it's amazing to be part of this creative team for almost 5 years now. I think Jeff and I kind of came on, and he invited me on and said, we're going to do this. Are you on board? And I said, absolutely. So the whole concept of maker-centered learning is one of the greatest parts of it, is that we are encouraging youth to become creators with the technology around them rather than just consuming it. And that's in the form of innovative projects that engage community, our industry and post-secondary partners, but most importantly, intergenerational connectivity. So when we're working with young children, we're including parents, we're including community members, and even the retired people who have a lot to give back to the community who act as mentors. So mentorship is a key part of what we do. And also the inclusivity factor, so that realizing that not everybody has access to these supports. So realizing that there is a gender divide, that we want to make sure that we kind of leverage the playing field so that young girls, we see more young girls. I'm not sure what the statistics here in the UK are and around the world, but in Nova Scotia, Canada, we're looking at about 27% of young women who are going into ICT. So that right there is what we call the glass ceiling, that we want to make sure that we can encourage young girls. We want to reach upon at-risk youth in high-priority neighborhoods. And like I said, that community piece is really, really important to what we do, so that we ensure that things don't just fall off outside of the classroom. That when we end the school day, we have a place to go, a safe place for our maker spaces, and that every youth has the same opportunity to be able to learn and create and to innovate projects that are not just innovative for them, but supportive of their community and the community members. And some of the projects we have include assisted living devices to help community members who may have arthritis, who have different disabilities, to also engaging maybe those who wouldn't be necessarily so much into technology, but are very much into project-based learning. So one of my favorite things are wearable technology. I'm usually a bit more outfitted with it, but wearable technologies that is both fashionable and functional. And I have found that in the past with a lot of young girls and boys who may not be so into robotics or maybe rapid prototyping, they'll say, wow, that's really great, fascinating that you have on there. What is that all about? And we get into the design process, and then we bring in the code, and that comes naturally, and they say, well, I didn't think I was a coder, or I didn't think I was a scientist, but wow, here I am, and I'm engaged, I'm using the microbit, I'm using other wearable microcontrollers, and the next thing you know, you have a whole cohort of students who you wouldn't necessarily reach, who are now engaged and ready to take the project to the next level. And I have a couple of young ladies and boys who started off just pure fashion design, and they're now actually intermediate to becoming expert coders. So it's really, really inspiring to be doing the work that we do every day.
So I won't bore you with the stats too much, but in our small little part of the world, we've been able to engage about 100,000 students per year and about 20,000 teachers per year. So it's been quite a groundswell of support for this. Enter the microbit. So all about creativity, innovation. The microbit, when it arrived on the scene 2.5–3 years ago in Canada, we got all over that. We had student projects coming from everywhere. We saw some great examples of those projects from the Netherlands over on the other side. And after a couple of years, some of our students, not all of them, but some of our students were ready for something else. So we decided to kind of build a superhero cape for the microbit. So I'm going to hand things over to Josh, our engineer. He'll walk you through the B-board and what it can do.
Okay. So first of all, before we get going, most of you have already done this, but please open the blister packs that you've got here. Start doing things while I'm talking. Feel free to explore, to create. If you go to, please swipe over, here we go. The URL is probably hard to see on there, but right now, bboard.now.sh.
It's on the little card that came with your
Yes.
message.
So if you can go to that website while we're getting this, while we're talking a bit about what this is, please feel free to start exploring with what you've got. And for those of you who don't have one of these right now, woo, you good?
If you don't, it's not here, you need a microbit and
Do you want me to switch over to the handheld for right now?
What's the card we're looking for here? Oh, that's Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yes, so please feel free to get that open, bboard.now.sh, and start exploring that right now. If you don't have one of these packs and you'd like to try something right now, let us know. We still have more up here. Just raise your hand and someone will bring you something over. So, can you grab something for her? So yes, the B-board. So this right here, essentially, as Jeff says, you know, like to say superhero cape or anything for the microbit. The idea initially sort of spawned from just trying to make some of the connectors and that a bit more accessible, and then of course it spiraled from there about how can we expand upon the capabilities and what can we do. And with that expansion, at first we had thought about creating sort of our own expansion you know, making our own protocol or anything else. But we came across, some of you may be familiar with, Microelectronica has what's called clickboards, this click expansion bus that's on there. And these clickboards, as you'll see each in your blister packs here, there are around 600 of these now, and they span every sort of technology that exists and keep growing and growing. So, you know, sensors and actuators, many different types of technology. And for myself and many of you out there who may be engineers or designers, you know that whenever you would be looking into designing some sort of new piece of hardware or technology, one of the first things you're going to be doing is investigating, researching, seeing what sort of sensors, technology you want to incorporate into your designs, and you would find a chip. And the first thing you do usually is get a giant development board. You bring that in, you know, pay $400 or $500, pounds, whatever it is that you're paying, and you develop with that and then eventually incorporate it into your design. Well, Microelectronica said, hey, why not just make a bus standard and put them all on the same sort of chip on here, which is great. So we decided to jump on board with this and use these, you know, why not get these into the hands of students so we can have kindergarten kids using cutting-edge leading technology right up to high school and beyond. And part of what we're proud about is the whole idea of everything here being open source. So everything that we are providing for these clickboards, for the B-board, for everything is open source, available for students, for you, for anyone else to go in, make your own PCB, make your own clickboards, do anything it is that you want to do. What we're providing essentially is a platform that you can easily plug these in and start using them, and also block-based code using the Microbit IDE in order to sort of get
from the wonderful people at Microsoft and the whole Make Code open source project.
Here. So the ability to have this block-based coding, which we absolutely love for getting students, there we go, getting students engaged, you know, just at that low floor level, just getting them in there, and then allowing them to expand upon there, you know, moving into from blocks into JavaScript to C, C++, whatever it is that you want to do. So in front of you all, you have different sort of selection of these clickboards on here. And I thought I'd just kind of quickly show one that I threw together here. We want you guys just to experiment, explore. You know, we don't need to follow instructions on there. You can look, you've got cards in front of you that do have a little bit of maybe guidance just because we don't have a lot of time here, but please feel free to experiment. And we also have other clickboards up here for you to give a try.
Two heads are always better than one. If you're having problems, get together with the friends.
Absolutely. And the one thing you'll notice, so if you click under Advanced, we don't have these as extensions right now, but you'll see the names of all of the clickboards that you have. And at the very end of all of them is a number. So one thing that the B-board provides is the ability from 1 microbit to control up to 32 clickboards. On board you have 2 clickboards, so you'll see number 1 and 2, so you're going to be selecting either click 1 or click 2. In this case, in the one that I've got up here, I have soon to be released click expansion boards, and these here are what allow us to keep expanding upon that. So from the B-board, you plug in with an RJ12 telephone cable here, plug into the bottom of that, and it allows you to, there we go, one hand, allows you to keep expanding. So I picked an absurdly long, messy cable just to give an example of the fact of, you know, how long distances we can go, and from here I can just plug in, carry on in that chain. So we're using CAN bus for any of you who actually care about that, to be able to carry these messages along and keep it quite robust. And again, up to 32 clipboards that you can put on here to integrate into your projects. So on the one that I happen to have on here, with this code up here, if I can set this down a second.
Just to jump in here for a second, so we talked about the superhero cape. An example of that would be some of you might have the servo clipboard, so we know the micro fits often because we make pretty servo mask if you have more power to it. With the servo clip, you've got 16 simultaneous servos that you can run at any given time, times 32. So you can run up to 500 and some because the right power supplies to it over a very long distance. So you can imagine whether it's interactive art installations or any type of project whatsoever.
So I've got a clipboard in here called the LCD Click, which is quite nice for you get a student project and you want to quickly display stuff on here. Sometimes the microbit is great for displaying. Sometimes if you're trying to put long text strings, anything, it's nice to have an LCD on there. You can see on the code, I'm writing the word distance is equal to, and then I'm adding with the join function the distance, which is on this IR distance sensor. So you can see as I'm going in and out, I've got the distances going up and down. This goes from 10 to 150 centimeters. And then on the back side of here, I've got a touchpad click, which, again, if you look on the microbit, I've got it so as I move my finger around, I'm moving that LED on there, again, using the touchpad. So you imagine the controls that students could use, maybe wanting to control a little robot or anything else. Again, using the touchpad on here, it has built-in gestures that we could add to detect, left swipe, up, down, double clicks, etc. So the fun thing about this, and that is how quickly you can just begin making something, using again the cutting edge technology, and being able to just kind of plug it in and go from there. Each of you have one. I mean, here's a few different examples. We've got a line follower for robots, where you could maybe drag something like this around to the front of your robot and then have it following the line, have a motor driver up on top, maybe servo drivers. We've got a motion click, a PIR sensor for detecting